Hey, everybody. Welcome to It's Just Bodybuilding. I'm Big Ron Partlow, and of course, I've got Dusty Hanshaw and the producer, Scott McNally. Like, share, subscribe, comment, and
ring the bell.
Or if you want, pound the Romanian drum.
Dun, dun.
Whatever that means.
You guys won't get that one, but Scott and Dusty know what I'm talking about.
There's a few people out there that follow us that will know that. Know what a Romanian drum is.
They're nodding.
Scott might have been showing me one of his toys before we went on air.
Maybe.
Okay, remember, IamMutant.com, proud sponsors of the show. Mutant takes excellent care of us. Of course, they have babysat Dusty and I for several years. And
put clothes on our back.
Podcast, put clothes on our back.
Literally.
And we are wearing
Literally.
we're wearing like these official Olympia collaboration shirts, and Scott has a hoodie on.
So cool.
And this stuff is going to be available. There's like a bunch of 60-year anniversary stuff on the back. You can't see it, but stuff is available
shirts.
at olympiagear.com. They collabed with Mutant to do a bunch of like really crazy Olympia gear. They got hoodies and t-shirts and stuff, and they're really excited about the 60-year anniversary of Joe Weider's Olympia. So olympiagear.com is where you get it, or you go to the Olympia Gear booth at the Olympia and you get it there. But Dusty and I are wearing it. It's much, much more like in your face than our normal clothing. It's we're going to the Olympia.
I feel like I might be competing. Like this almost feels like Olympia jacket vibes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it almost feels, it's like real expo, like,
Yeah.
Boom. In your face. Let's go to the expo. Yeah. So we're ready to rock.
Might be in 212. Who knows, guys? We'll see you there.
Just might hop in.
Ready.
Yeah. Might make weight. See how this week goes. I'm going to cut out the McDonald's.
Never know.
Yeah. Dude, yeah. Okay. So we're excited. Remember our codes to get your discount is Big Ron and Dusty. There's no more number. So it's not Dusty 20 or Big Ron 20. It's just Big Ron or Dusty. Use your code, get your discount, and the codes now stack with promos, which they didn't before. So that's the reason for the change. So when there is a sale, you can get an even better deal. So get in there, get it, and everyone should get their IsoSurge. They're all in, and everyone should get on the gear. Especially if you're going to the Olympia. Can you imagine walking around the Olympia floor natty?
Oh, forget it.
I mean, I do it on TRT, and I already feel like people are like, what the fuck is he doing here?
Yeah, well, you're retired. You already proved what you had to prove.
Yeah.
The rest of us, we're still.
I sort of have that. That's why I leave some gray in my beard. I don't trim it totally out because I want to make sure people know why I'm small.
He's old. He's retired.
He's old.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I know when I shave, people tell me I look 10 years younger, and then there's no excuse to not be 300 pounds.
Yeah. What happened to Ron?
What happened to Ron? He's like 35 and like really small.
Yeah.
That's not
But
good.
now they know.
Gave up.
He's been through the ringer.
Been there, done that.
He's washed right up. Okay, it's okay then. Yeah. Okay. I can handle it. I'm going to even run the clippers over the forearms for the expo, Dusty.
Ooh, getting fancy this time.
Yeah, I want the veins to really pop, So we're excited. So what of course we're doing an Olympia episode. We're going to talk about the Olympia for a bunch. We got a bunch of stuff to say, but we're going to go right into the Olympia. Dusty did his research when he was eating his cornflakes this morning, and he sent a bunch of pictures to the chat. He went in deep. A bunch of great memories. We're going to take you, what are we going to call this? A little history lesson for those of you. I mean, I know we got some guys here that are like, me and Dusty, or they're my age, and they know all this stuff. But it'd be a good recap. And then we got a bunch of guys that maybe they don't quite know all the way back.
To them, the old days was like, when Big Ramy was Mr. Olympia.
Yeah. I remember when I started training and Shawn Rhoden was Mr. Olympia. Yeah. Like that sort of thing, right? So we're going to take you guys way back. So how are we going to do this, Scott? Are we just going to start with the Mr. Olympia?
Oh, I don't know. Dusty sent all these pictures. Dusty, did you have anything in mind here? Because I almost see a little bit going on here, a theme.
I went in order. Well, here's what I thought of when I did this is, so when I got into bodybuilding, it was right after Dorian and right when Ronnie was winning. And it was kind of like Ron realizing that, that maybe this wasn't his you jump in and you go, wait, this isn't the beginning of the Olympia.
Mm-hmm.
So just like, okay, I need to go all the way back. So right then and there, I got and went in deep and went backwards. And I've noticed guys don't do that anymore. They just go,
sometimes you don't.
Phil Heath's Mr. Olympia. And then they just start watching. And I just was a fan of looking back, particularly knowing the training, the drugs, the nutrition information. So that's why I went all the way back to the very, very beginning, because I wanted to show guys like what a Mr. Olympia looked like in 1965.
Yeah, there we go. Larry Scott, 65, 66. I mean, that was it.
Look at that mass back then. And this was back when you think this is a cult sport now?
Oh, God.
Who the hell was working out in 1965?
Yeah, there's literally like 10 guys that look like that in California back then. Yeah. You know what I mean? Guys are working out in the 50s, and there was a Mr. Universe contest and stuff, but to have pecs like that and Larry Scott, I think Larry Scott had a legitimate 20-inch arm, didn't he? Which was like,
it appears like he did.
Freakish,
Yeah.
But yeah, that physique back then would be like seeing Ronnie Coleman walk down the street at 320 now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just unbelievable, And of course, Larry famous for doing the Scott curls, which is just a preacher curl. He did tons of Scott preacher curls. That's how he built his biceps, he says. And yeah, back in the 60s.
I see the
scene workout.
The next one you had was Sergio.
Yeah, then Sergio shows up.
Dude, I feel like this is a leap ahead now.
Yeah. Sergio shows up and you're like, oh, yeah. He's the only guy to beat Arnold at the Olympia, right?
Yep. Yeah. So he beat Arnold in 69. The picture on the left was his first Olympia. And then the picture on the right was the last time he competed as a pro. It wasn't Olympia. I don't know what show it was, but that was just to kind of, I love the idea of showing guys progression as well, because I think that's everyone's obsession now. So I thought this picture.
I think Sergio's last show was like the 85 Olympia or something like that, wasn't it?
Right. Yep.
I think Haney won, but yeah, Sergio was like older and he came back and did the show, and he still looked crazy. Of course, famous for those giant arms.
Insane arms.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Yeah. Only guy to beat Arnold at the 69.
Yeah, and then the following year.
People forget in 68, Sergio, he'd won in 67, and then in 68 he showed up and nobody entered the Olympia. He won it by default. They held the Universe that day, and then they held the Olympia, and he's the only guy in it.
I would totally take that, Like most of the time, if nobody else shows up, you're like, hey, I dieted and I wanted a good competition. But if it were just one time at the Olympia and nobody else showed up, I would take the trophy. And the
especially because the Universe winner, right? The Universe winner would hop into the Olympia. And he didn't bother.
Huh.
Right?
Oh, that's amazing.
So
that's weird. Could you imagine that today?
That could have.
They just decided not to go.
On my peak, they still would have given me second.
Yeah.
We are not letting
going
you win
to vacate the title this year.
Yeah.
Really want anyone on the poster.
Yeah. Not a shot, buddy. Yeah. Not a shot.
Yeah. Okay. Arnold. Then we get Arnold, of course. Now this, do you know what year this is, Dusty? This looks like 75. This looks like pumping iron.
I tried to get as early as I could, but that was the thing about Arnold pictures. You couldn't narrow them down. I couldn't narrow them down.
Yeah,
I know that wasn't the haircut he had in 70 when he did it. It was more down. I went back and looked. All the 70 pictures were blurry, and I did not want to disrespect him with not getting a shot.
So from the research I've done, the 74 Olympia is where he was at his biggest, and you can tell he's bigger. He's like, he's the most muscular from 74 that's kind of famous, and it's like, oh, he looks big there. And then 75, which I believe this is the pumping iron year, he had actually kind of decided to not do it again, and then he did it again just for pumping iron. And so he came in a little bit lighter and still won it. So if you read his book, he talks about how 74 was actually when he intended to retire. He didn't announce it or anything, but he kind of intended to retire. And then they wanted to make the movie, and he's like, let's do another one. And so I think that's the year. But yeah, I mean, Arnold looks amazing there. It's kind of, you could tell what they intended to do when they started the classic physique division.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then you don't forget he came back in 80 and won again. But pretty much the only people that had him winning that show were the judges.
And his wife.
Yeah, maybe.
Maria had me first. Yeah. Okay. Of course, Arnold. And then we get, after Arnold leaves, we get Franco wins one.
Yes. And I wanted to picture him with the sand out, and obviously it's not a picture that shows how phenomenal he was. I always loved his physique because of our time in bodybuilding. When I looked back, to me, he was closer to the current pros as far as balance and all that, you know?
And then, of course, he wins another one. He wins 76, and then he wins 81 as well.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He wins another one later, which was a little more controversial. But
I feel like every guy who's won a few Olympias has got one question mark. You know,
yeah, there's Franco. You know,
better representation.
Look at that separation in those pecs.
Those pecs, the pecs. The pecs is crazy.
Those shorts are back in style too, pretty much.
Yeah, we're back to the short shorts.
My wife wears them.
Yeah.
Nikki wears them around the house. Nikki does her vacuuming in those shorts.
Yeah.
Okay, and then after Franco, we get Frank Zane.
A little picture of Frank. Let me bring that.
Do you guys remember? Do you remember Frank Zane's nickname? The other guys called him.
No.
Was he the
Chemist?
Yeah.
They called Frank Zane the Chemist. He always had bottles of vitamins and pills and minerals, and he was like all about I mean, of course, when we hear chemist, we're thinking like purely drugs, right?
Right.
But he was also known. He was also known for like being a real really into the little things, like, oh man, a little extra magnesium and got to hit this and that and get that water look, and so they called Frank the Chemist. He always had a bag full of goodies, and I'm sure there were some D-balls and Anivars in there too.
Oh,
yeah.
Not much, but he's the only Mr. Olympia I ever met that was just an ass.
Yeah.
You had a bad Frank Zane experience,
did
you?
Dude.
Don't
well,
meet your heroes.
He was backstage at a show that I was sponsoring. So I was giving out the overall, and you're standing there, you're waiting for the overall at a local show, and I go, "Who you got, Frank?" And we'd been talking. And he goes, "They're all garbage." That's all he said to me. I was like,
"Okay,
all right." I was just trying to make a conversation. This isn't like my friends and family, but okay.
Yeah. So far at this point, how many of these guys have you met?
Oh man, let's see. 1, 2.
You've met Arnold, right, Dusty? You got your photo with Arnold. Yeah.
Yep. So Arnold, Franco, I met forever ago, obviously. Zane, and then that's it until Lee Haney for me.
Okay. Yeah. So far I've met Franco and Arnold.
Yeah.
Okay. Next was Chris Dickerson.
Okay, I met Chris Dickerson at the Mandalay Bay in 2002 when I went to the Olympia. He was wearing a tuxedo, and I think it was 2002 or 2003. I can't remember. They had all the Mr. Olympias go on stage, and Dickerson was wearing a tuxedo. I think that was the year. I can't quite remember, but I met him, and he was really nice. I just said, "Oh, Mr. Dickerson, I just want to say hi to you." He was just standing there waiting for somebody, so he took a minute. He's like, "Oh, thanks."
Right.
But he was just a little guy, But 1982.
That era, like 70s and 80s, they were so pec heavy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a good look. It's a good look. His pecs are huge compared to everything else, aren't they?
Yeah.
That.
Dickerson wasn't a big guy, but conditioned, and it was the early 80s. And then 83 comes along. And the Lion from Lebanon.
Yes.
Samir Banu.
Look at the jump in size there.
Yeah.
Monster.
I just can't stop looking at the mustache. That's all I see.
No. And you see Frank Zane. You see Frank Zane in the background there.
Oh, yeah.
And so 83, I remember, I don't know if it was that year, but I remember Zane saying that he, realized that bodybuilding was past. His time had passed because they weren't everyone was just getting way bigger. And Samir, even though he was barely under 200 pounds, someone put his weight on one of our shows when we were talking about him. I think he was 196.
Yeah.
Yeah, 196. But it was that look. You could tell things have changed. Guys are doing proper stacks now for shows.
A different kind of chemist now.
Different kind of chemist. Yeah.
Look at this back. We looked at that back picture before when we were talking about him, but we can't talk about him again without bringing that up. Look at those calves too. Yeah.
We're thinking the same thing. Look at them calves.
We should get him on, by the way. We need to get him on the show.
Aceto telling the story because he's really good friends with Samir, right? And And I remember telling the story about Samir did the best Joe Weider impression. So
he would
do stuff. He would do stuff like Joe couldn't contain Samir. Joe could not control him. So he would go to the Weider headquarters. He would pick up the phone and he would go to the intercom and he would do a Joe Weider impression and he would tell everyone, it's been a great week. It's Friday at 11. Everyone take off for the day. And he sent everyone home. So everyone home early on a Friday. And Joe Weider's like, where'd everyone go? And they're like, he sent us all home.
That's amazing.
Joe's like, the office is empty. Where's everybody? Oh, you gave us a long weekend. You told us to go home at noon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Stuff like that.
So you're saying he was the most popular Olympian?
Yeah. Most popular. There we go.
That's a good shot.
And then, of course, 1984 comes and a 23-year-old Lee Haney shows up.
Absolutely unreal.
It looks like Dusty had awesome. Looks like a young picture of Lee Haney here.
Yeah, that was the first year. That's why I did it.
84.
Nice.
That's 84. I know that one.
I had to get. I want to get the oldest ones. If you see the ones I sent, the majority of them were early. If I could choose it,
I like that.
I like to see them in the beginning. I mean, he could hang at that photo right there now.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Great look. And another thing that I really love about Haney is just he came in at 23, won 8 in a row, retired at 31 with no injuries at all. Yeah. And when he was 31 and he won his 8th Olympia, he was at his very best of all time. So he went out on absolute top. And you got to hand it to him.
It's a back shot. It's not the clearest back shot. If you're going to get something.
Yeah, it looks like a magazine picture. Picture of a picture.
He's absolutely. Now, when we hit the Lee Haney era, so when I was a kid, we watched Pumping Iron at my house. And my dad's friends told me, okay, well, Arnold's not the guy anymore. He's retired. Now everybody's going after Lee Haney. And that's about the time.
That was my first Olympia.
That's about the time I started getting my first Flex magazines and stuff and seeing what he looked like,
Yeah, my first magazines were, Lee Haney was my first Olympia champ, in my memory, and then the first VHS tapes that the guys at the gym started giving me. Yeah. Oh, you really like bodybuilding? Here's an 89 Olympia. Go watch this. Here's an 88 Olympia. Go watch this. And I'm at home watching these VHS tapes and just soaking it in, the lights and the music and the posing routines and the call outs and the comparisons and just one thing, like Dusty said, some of the guys now, they don't know all this history. And I think that I've always been a history buff with things that I love, like when I was talking about the James Bond movies last week, I had to go back and what order are they supposed to go in and who directed them? And I needed to know that stuff. And that's how I was when I got into bodybuilding. I was like, okay, wait, how many Olympians have there been? I need to soak these in and understand. And so when I got to my first contest myself, I didn't need anyone to tell me okay, you go out and then the judges are going to make you do quarter turns. And then they're going to I didn't need to have anyone tell me any of that. I knew exactly what was going on. I'd seen every Olympia videotape that there was.
And the reason I always bring up his back is because I distinctly remember it's kind of like for people who go back and look at his pictures, it's kind of like us looking back at the Beatles. And you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that's really good music. I understand how it was really important, but you can't understand what it was like to have been there before the Beatles, and then the Beatles came, and then you see how they transformed everything. Lee Haney's back transformed bodybuilding, because before that, you hadn't seen that size before. And then we realized that was even possible. At the time, though, I remember, what it was? We were told, my dad's friends told me, oh, it's genetics. It was a very limiting set of beliefs that he can do that because he has good genetics for back. It wasn't until later in my life that I realized, if you work really hard, maybe I can't do Lee Haney back, but I could do my own best back.
Yeah.
We don't always see that because, we like you said, the newer guys, they might not understand that concept. What do we have here next then, Dusty?
Who's next.
Who's this guy?
Speaking of back.
Right? Let me find his back picture too then.
And this one I thought was awesome.
For the audio listeners, who's this?
Because Dorian wins his first Olympia in 92 after taking the muscularity round in 91 from Haney. So he actually won one round. And I always wondered as a kid if Dorian's coming up played any sort of role in Haney's decision to roll. Just because it was so drastic.
I've seen interviews about that. Haney was talking to his wife about retiring before the Olympia.
Right.
He's like, how many more of these do I need to do? And his wife was like, well, if you win this one, it's 8. And you got nothing to prove. There's all these other things Haney wanted to do with business, and he was opening those Animal Kingdom gyms, and all this other stuff was going on. And so I believe Haney when he says that he was looking to retire anyways, but he also says that he picked a good time to step out.
It makes you wonder though, because obviously as a Haney and Yates fan, I'm not saying that Yates would have came in and won, but I think it would have been really interesting in 92 because like you said, Ron, Haney was still going up. So he wasn't in Ronnie's position when he lost and wasn't the Ronnie of old. So I believe that Haney would have brought even more. And if you go back, the next pictures I sent you, Scott, that I thought would be cool to throw up are the changes of Yates from his first Olympia till the end.
The 92 to 93, the 92 to 93 shots.
Those are great.
So think about that. That's one season.
Jeez.
He said one of the main things was he says there's 15 pounds stage weight difference, 242 to 257. But he said only about half of that is new muscle. The other half is, he was obsessed with condition. And after the 92 Olympia, everyone said, you're the best conditioned guy and you're still way bigger than everyone. So, and then he said his chiropractor actually said to him, I think I'm the only guy that's ever seen you at your best.
Oh, that's amazing.
And he was like, huh. And he thought, I shouldn't push the scale down so far. I'm already peeled out of my mind at 250 something. I should just maybe, and so he just, came in way bigger. Yeah, that's 300 pound guest posing shot.
It's huge, massive.
Yeah. That's one of my favorites. I just think that's a great example though, because nowadays, and you guys both know this, your competitors are looking at the scale as you're bringing them down. They're like, I'm getting too light. And you're going, you're still fat. Yeah. And he was peeled out of his head and had the opposite obsession. He was like, I cannot be fat. I cannot be second leanest. I got to be the most. Yeah. And it didn't cost him, but it definitely changed a ton. Yeah. And then up next was the first Olympia that I got to see when I started looking as a kid. And that was Ronnie Coleman.
Yeah, buddy.
Ronnie. Yeah, buddy.
The 98, and I mean, in my opinion, 99 was still possibly his best ever.
The waist was just so small.
Yeah.
The waist was so small at those shows, just so outrageously tiny on that physique. And
look at this. Look at the quad sweep into the hips and waist in a most muscular.
Yeah.
Obscene.
Here's another good one Dusty sent. Look at that.
Yeah.
98.
That's 98 also. Yeah, that was freaking nuts. Then I tossed it in 03 for anybody who hasn't been around long enough to see the day that he boggled everyone's mind at 286 pounds.
Yeah. Outrageous. Crowd laughing. I remember being there at prejudging. Crowd laughing when he walked out. Imagine walking out at the Olympia and the main reaction is the whole crowd starts to giggle.
Yeah.
It was so weird though, because you guys got to remember he came in 40 pounds heavier than the year before.
Suddenly.
And way harder. And way harder than the year before. And Ron's right. Between the laughing and then the other thing is that I wish more people realize this is Ronnie used to be really vocal at prejudging. He would shout on stage. He hit shots and be screaming, and so they at one point, he hits a rear lat spread, and it's pretty equal to everyone. Then you hear him go and then he opens it another 7 feet.
Yeah.
And you're like,
that's amazing.
What? It was like he was toying with the best in the world and knew it.
Here we go. And stuff like that.
You remember in 04, Ron, I think it was. They're doing the quarter turns and they're facing the front, and they go quarter turn right, and Ronnie turns all the way around, and then it was D'Amelio at the time, and he goes to the right, Ronnie. So he comes back, and then when they get finished with the side pose, he goes, "Okay, Ronnie, quarter turn to the rear."
Yeah, like he's showing everyone the back just anyways. And I remember when he turned to the back, he started marching his feet up and down, flexing his glutes like a soldier, like high kneeing, flexing his glutes. So he's standing there marching, lift, right, lift, like that, like marching. And Wayne's like, "Okay, Ronnie, back double bicep." You know, like just
Ronnie made it so much fun when you would go to shows. Because he just had so much fun with it, and it wasn't close at those shows. It was at that point. It was something I think people forget. You remember when they did the challenge rounds, and those of you guys that weren't watching then, they had a little thing where they tried to bring a little WWE into it, where they had Triple H would go backstage and talk to guys, and I'll never forget my favorite watching it live. He's talking to Dexter Jackson, and he's like, "So what do you think, Dex?" And Dex goes, "All I'm saying is I'm getting second." And Triple H goes, "Second?" And he looks him right in the face and goes, "Come on, man, that's Ronnie Coleman." Like first is already taken. I'm here for the second first.
I'll never forget, like, it was a magic time because, you know, that 2003 era was still a message boards thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
And we didn't have the social media at all yet. So the message boards were how we were all interconnected back then. Yep. So I remember seeing Chad Nichols in the hallway, and he knew I was rep 300. That's how he knew me.
That was your name.
and I saw him in the hallway that morning, and I knew he was busy and stuff, but he like saw me walking and he slowed down and go, "Hey, how's it going?" And I go, "Good." And like I knew he was like busy with Ronnie. Like this was on my way to prejudging, so I figured Chad would be in a hurry, but he seemed super relaxed. And he stops and like, "How's it going?" And I go, "Good. How's Ronnie?" And he goes, "It's 287. It's over." And I went, "Really?" And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, it's another world. Like it's over with. It's completely over with. And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I went and sat in my seat and just waited. But Chad was like, "Just done deal. Like I'm going to go eat breakfast." Like
I might skip prejudging. I'm hungry.
Did I tell you a quick story? Did I tell you my, I know I've told this on the show before, but a lot of listeners probably haven't heard it. I'll be really quick. 2003, after prejudging, I'm waiting for my friend John Davey from Australia because he did the show.
I remember.
And I'm standing there waiting for him to come out from the tunnel, you know? And there's a bunch of people standing there waiting, and they're all waiting for somebody, their favorite pro. Maybe they want to try and steal a picture or whatever. And there's a guy standing next to me leaning against the wall, and I'm trying to be out of the way. You know, there's a bunch of kids with posters and shit kind of hanging out. And this guy's just standing there. He's got flip-flops, a pair of jeans with rips in them, and a T-shirt and a ball cap. And I go, "Oh, so what'd you think?" And he goes, "Oh, man, Ronnie's just outrageous." And I go, "Yeah, he fucking pretty much crushed everyone." And he goes, "Yeah." And then he's like kind of standing there, and we're talking a little bit. And then Ronnie came out, and he walked up to Ronnie, and he like talked to him. And like, you know, and they kind of stood there for a second. I can't remember if they took a picture or whatever, you know, it would have been back in the days of real cameras. Right. And then, you know, that was it. And then these guys were kind of looking at me the whole time I was talking to them. And afterwards they go, "Hey, do you know him?" And I go, "No, I was just chatting with him." And they go, "That's A-Rod." And I go,
"That's amazing."
I go, "Really? The baseball player?" And they go, "Yeah, that's fucking A-Rod."
That's wild.
So I was like, "Oh, he had just signed." I remember he had just signed like a $180 million deal at the time.
Yeah.
No one was bugging him.
Yeah, because they were afraid to talk to him, and you're the guy that's like, "What's going on, man? How are you?"
Yeah, I didn't know who he was, so I was just like, "Hey, what did you think of the show?" You know, just bullshitting with him. It's fun.
Yeah,
that probably made his afternoon to have someone in his eyes pretend to not know him,
right,
on a normal conversation.
Yeah. But it's like that was back. I remember the Mandalay days with the days with Ronnie were magic because you would see like Kevin Eubanks from the Tonight Show band. He was always at the show, just as a fan, and you would see like Hollywood. It'd be like Hollywood people showing up at Mandalay, and like you just see people like that. You know, it was weird time because it was of course before social and all that, so it was really weird to see. I remember getting into an elevator and Kevin Eubanks was in the elevator.
No kidding.
And I was like, Jesus, that's Kevin Eubanks. Like, from Jay Leno. Like, but I he's just standing there with a couple guys chatting, and I'm like, he's really little.
In our world.
Yeah, in our world. Yeah. Okay, next up.
Can't forget this guy.
The still married hair.
Yeah.
We've all got it. Yes, Jay, 06, 07, 09, and 10. And 06 was an interesting one for those who don't know, because everyone kind of knew that Jay was winning. Ronnie was a little off. His body was kind of falling apart. But because it was such a big deal, they actually, Nikki just came home, they actually told Ronnie backstage that he was losing. They gave him a heads up, and he told Jay before it was announced.
Oh, no kidding. I didn't know that.
And what was cool about that was they kind of gave him a heads up, just so it wasn't such a big blow, even though Ronnie may have known. They solidified it.
Yeah.
And I thought it was great because, Jay said something to the effect of, I'm the best today, but you're the best of all time.
That's such a Jay move, right?
Yeah.
That's cool.
There's definitely a reason that he is who he is.
Remember Jay telling us that he's like standing there kind of feeling bad that he's about to win the Olympia. Really strange. Jay said that was really strange for him. He told us that on the show, like, knowing he's about to win. And you could see Ronnie's like facing him. He's not facing the crowd. And he's like, you got me today, Jay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Got me today. And Jay said he was like, holy shit, I'm about to beat Ronnie Coleman.
Yep.
And kind of felt bad about it, which just says a lot about Jay,
Oh, yeah. That hunt was that was so awesome in bodybuilding for me. I mean, I went, although I was going with a company, I still went as a fan mentally to the Olympia all those years, seeing it all. And there was a weird period there where, and Ron, I know you can relate to this, where you're a huge fan and you all know, and all of them at the same time, but you're still a fan. So it's kind of like a weird, where you're no longer asking for pictures or autographs as much, other than if you just happen to be somewhere. Oh, let's pause the show here.
My daughter joined us.
Oh, look at that. There you
my
go.
Canadian daughter. Yes,
about time she came into the mix. We haven't seen her live before, Just wish she had her Halloween costume on, but guess she didn't
that's
get
only
a treat yet.
time. Yeah, exactly. Hey, I'll tell you guys. So when I got plugged back into bodybuilding, Ronnie was already Mr. Olympia. So, I trained all through being a kid, teenager, got away from it. And when I got plugged back in, Ronnie was already Mr. Olympia. And I was watching Jay struggle for him. Chase him. So I came back around for that. So for me, this 2006 moment was freaking awesome. Because he finally, it said to me that if you worked hard long enough, and you put that time in, that you too can achieve. That's what I saw in this, and I think it's just so many people at that point were like so for Jay to finally do it.
I'll never forget how many people, like when they announced Jay as the winner,
it blew up.
It was the craziest thing I've ever seen at the Olympia. Like the craziest thing ever of all the 20 plus Olympias I've been to. And it was wild how I don't know, 30% of the room was crying.
Wow.
Yeah, it was wild.
Like either crying for Ronnie or crying for Jay. Like there were people crying everywhere. And then it was like, I remember even like, Jesus, I'm going to cry. Jesus, I got to get yourself together. Pull yourself together.
Toss me an Adex. Someone quick.
Someone toss me an Arimidex. Tell me a joke. And it was just like it was the most emotional Olympia I've ever been to.
That's wild.
Absolutely nuts. People were crying out in the lobby. People were leaving with tears in their eyes. People were leaving really, really upset.
Wow.
Ronnie lost, like just crushed that Ronnie lost. And then people were just like screaming Jay's name in the lobby, and it was nuts.
Yeah.
Nuts.
My favorite part, actually, for those of you, did you guys ever see the Jay's DVD One Step Closer, the 05 Olympia prep? Yeah. So my favorite part of that entire video is his supposed to be celebration dinner, but he took second. And there's a quick scene that his mom reminded me of all great mothers out there. because she looks at the camera as if Jay's playing t-ball and goes, Jay will always be number one to us, and that's what matters. And I just remember thinking, like, I love that you can tell where he comes from in that, because he's literally the most popular bodybuilder on the planet at the time.
Yeah, and he might as well
the
be
second
playing
best in the world.
Midget hockey.
Yeah, and the way she talked about it, I was like, that's when you know you're like you're coming from the right family and your mom's awesome. As she doesn't, none of that matters, you know?
Yeah.
So it was cool, and I can only imagine what that effect was the following year for them when it came through, you know, because it had to be, you know, like when Ron made the varsity football team. It's very similar, right there.
When it was 06 was also the end of the greatest rivalry of all time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like the absolute greatest, most vital, most important rivalry bodybuilding has ever seen. And it ended at the Olympia in 06.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Ronnie was responsible for how good Jay became.
Yeah.
And then,
no Ronnie, no Jay. Yeah.
08, Ronnie or Jay comes in just a little off, and Dex does what he always says he'll do.
Yeah.
If you slip, I'll get you.
And it paid off.
And he did.
It paid off a lot for him through his career. This was the biggest payoff.
Yeah,
I made a whole career
pro of all time.
Yeah.
The best quote from Dexter was, I made a whole career of catching people when they're off. There ain't no runaways. This ain't the Ronnie Coleman days.
And it was the truth.
And it was the truth. He got himself a Sandow for it.
In that 08 win, obviously, is what created the Jay Cutler angry comeback.
Quad stomper.
The quad stomp picture. So everyone knows that it's fresh enough, so we don't really have to throw that up. But I thought that one was important because I was a huge Jay fan at that point. I knew him personally, and it actually bothered me leading into the Olympia because people had him in fourth out of the top five. I mean, and it was funny because you would go on any, let's pretend it was this era podcast, any show where they were talking, no one had Jay winning. Nobody. He was marked off. It was done. It was over. And when he walked out on that stage, I'm sure you were there too, Ron, he walked out and prejudging about 10, 15 feet and just stopped.
Yeah, and did the Hulk Hogan ear.
Yeah, and the place erupted, and the show was over. We all knew it was done. He annihilated everyone. You know, I actually had chills in that moment. I just remember going, and you're looking around. I mean, everyone had the exact same moment that was in that room because he ended the show as soon as he walked out. And the only sad part of that story is that another friend of the group, Branch Warren, brought his best of all time that day. And it was not going to be enough against that Jay Cutler because the gap between Jay and Branch was huge. And the gap between Branch and everyone else was also huge.
Yeah, he was looking incredible. He was definitely at his best at that point.
I'll never forget that prejudging. I'll never forget. The finals, I mean. They came out to do posing routines, and Branch was the first one out. And he did his posing routine, and I was like, holy shit. And then, it was prejudging. They did the 30-second presentation. Yeah. He comes out, and I was like, holy shit. Branch looks like Mr. Olympia.
Yeah.
And then every single guy that came out after that, I was like, nope, like 12 times. And then Jay comes out, and I was like, oh, shit. You know what I mean? And then after the 30-second presentations, I was like, Branch is top 2. And then they come out in the call-outs, and we all know the rest, Yeah.
Pretty simple.
Then we have one of the coolest moments in Olympia history. We have the passing of the torch from Jay to Phil, which is, in my mind, one of the best speeches ever given at the Olympia by Jay. The first time they ever gave the loser the microphone to talk first. They knew the story, so they handed Jay the microphone to tell the story as they gave Phil the Sandow of how Jay saw him at an entry-level show and got him a sponsorship with Muscle Tech and told him he had the potential to be the greatest and gave him all the tips and all the advice and all the help and hooked him up with people and got him on the right track. And now he's handing him his trophy. And it was a crazy story, you know.
That was another typical Jay moment where he immediately made it about Phil. Because for a lot of people in the room, that was kind of like the Ronnie thing, only even worse, because I think a lot of people really had a connection with Jay. And the moment it happened, it was about Jay's loss, not Phil's win. And then Jay refused for that to be the way it was, and he swapped it immediately, and it became immediately about Phil's win. And that just showed who he was to me.
Yeah, he made it. He made the emphasis of his story was how he knew Phil was great the first time he saw him, and how Phil turned out to be even greater. And he did not expect his rise to be so fast and so like insanely quick. 2003, he got his pro card at the USA like first try. And
he looked incredible. He looked like a pro.
That show,
were you,
Ron? And I was at Junior Nationals that he won that year too. And it was so everyone knew of him that was in the mix, but those in the crowd didn't. And I'll never forget, I was sitting in the crowd.
Oh, we got a frozen.
I think we lost Dustin.
No.
Well, I hear you.
There we go.
You were sitting in the crowd. Sitting in the crowd.
Yeah. So I'm sitting in the crowd. He walks out, and I'm just like, "Who the hell is that?" Where did you come from? And it was the same thing. I mean, at that level, you're like, oh, he's winning. And then somebody said, oh, he's doing the USA. So I'm like, oh, he's winning that also. And I went to the USA 6 weeks later.
Yeah, it was 05. 05.
Yeah.
05.
Yeah. I went to the USA 6 weeks later, and he won that as well.
When did you ever see somebody at Junior Nationals that looked like this?
His first show ever was 03. His first show was 03, and then he wins the USAs in 05. And then he wins his first pro show in 06.
4 shows.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that.
I think the only show he didn't win was what? The was it the Arnold or the Olympia was the first show
Arnold
he didn't win?
took him a while.
Yeah.
Took him a while. Yeah, he won a couple of pro shows and he got 5th at the Arnold in 07. And then he won the Ironman in 08, so he's doing a big show now, and then 2nd at the Arnold in 2008. And then his first Olympia, he lands 3rd. 2008, 3rd.
Skip competed against him in Colorado. Like back in the day.
Whoops.
Yeah.
Everyone has one of those stories of someone that they met at the wrong time. You know, like Skip with him. I told you, my friend Dave Nelson was doing the border states, and some guy named Dennis James rolled in.
Yeah,
that didn't go well for him.
There's always that one guy that shows up.
Yeah. Yes. So that was 11 to 17, and then. This one's a personal one for me, and that's Shawn Rhoden. Shawn became a friend through Aceto, of course. Just got to know him on every level.
Did you?
And he's just a solid dude. And I think that my favorite part, and the reason I love going to this one, is Chris believed in Shawn before Shawn believed in Shawn.
It was
so
outrageous.
when he first took on Rhoden. He actually, and I talked to, you remember Sean Perrine from Flex Magazine?
Mm-hmm.
So he was not at the show. It was a Flex Pro show. And somebody said, he goes, oh, who they got winning? And the guy goes, Shawn. And he goes, Shawn who? And he goes, Rhoden, our guy. Like Rhoden was already one of their like smaller athletes. He's like, no, who's winning the show? And he's like, Shawn Rhoden is going to win the Flex Pro show. And he was so like not on the map for people at that point. It was unheard of. Chris brought him in. He dusted everybody.
What year was
then
that?
They go
about. Can't remember. It was like somewhere in the teens, middle teens, early teens.
It was a quick rise though. So it was, probably 13-ish in there.
Yeah.
But then they go to do the Olympia, and Shawn is telling Chris the night before the Olympia, he goes, one of these days I'm my biggest goal is to make the top 5. And Chris is like, oh, well, I'm kind of thinking we'll do that tomorrow.
Yeah.
And Chris and Shawn was like, no, I mean, that's not possible. And Chris is like, tomorrow.
Yeah.
You will be. And, they had a little bet I won't put out here because I don't know how much that's supposed to be known, but there was a gift involved. He said, if I could do that, I would whatever. And Chris goes, all right, we'll consider it done. And he ended up getting 3rd at that first Olympia with Chris.
And that really put him on the map because I remember that.
But the thing that was interesting was he still, every year leading to Olympia, Chris was like, you're going to win this. You're going to win this. And Shawn was kind of like, yeah, you know, and he never could get over the hump. And I remember it's probably 12, 14 weeks out from the 18. And I said, hey, how's Shawn doing? And he goes, he's going to win the Olympia. And I was like, yeah, well, I know. I mean, because you always say that. And he goes, no. He told me he's going to win the Olympia. And the moment he told me he's going to win the Olympia, I knew he would. And then he did. And it was, I mean, it was bonkers. I was very happy to be at that show as well.
I remember Chris telling me, so I told my story about how I met Shawn at the 2009 North Americans. He was there by himself, and I kind of became his friend because I was the only guy talking to him. And I remember him saying after, he's like, man, it was really cool to have like someone like hang out with me. Like no one else talked to me. No one else like even said hi to me. And you were like, hey man, you're going to win this show. You look awesome.
Right.
Like, fuck, you know, like go get the heavyweights, man. You're going to win this. Go take them. And he had no one else with him. And I was like pumping up backstage for supers. And I was telling him, I'm like, you're going to win the heavyweights, man. They're all staring at you. Look at that class. Everyone's staring at you. And he's like, oh shit. Like he was pretty quiet and shy. And then when he came off stage, I was getting ready to go on as a super, and he came off stage, and I go, where'd they put you? And he goes, in the middle. And I go, I told you. And he kind of smiled. And then after I got my placing in supers, I ran around, and he was about to go out for heavyweight. And I said, I'm going to go sit in the middle of the front row. I go, you're going to win the overall. And he was like, okay. I go, you're going to win the overall. Like I told him, like, you're going to go win it. Go win it. And he's like, okay. And then like, you know, it was just cool. It was just really cool. And then I didn't obviously realize he was going to become Shawn Rhoden. It was just this guy I made friends with that day, right?
That's cool.
And so we always had that show that kind of made us friends, right? And I'll never forget Chris telling me he will win the Olympia, and he's the only person on the planet who was saying that for like a couple years.
Oh yeah.
And then I remember being behind the front desk at West Coast Iron. I was like working at the gym, and I checked my phone, and it was Monday before the Olympia. And I looked, and Chris sent me some photos, and he said, you're 2018 Mr. Olympia. And he looked great in the photos, but they're just hotel photos, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I go, you think he's going to take Phil Heath? And he goes, there's no way Phil beats this. And I was like, wow, Chris is like confident.
Yeah.
And then he fucking won. Like, that's an aceto thing that is really hard to overlook. When he believes in someone, it is on. It is
because he jumps in. He will will you to it on his own if you don't do it with him.
Yeah, he'll drag you kicking and screaming to the top. Like
I was a big fan of Shawn, and I didn't know that you were friends with him, Dusty. But yeah, I remember seeing him earlier on, and people did say like, oh, you know, he just doesn't get his act together. He doesn't look like he cares on stage earlier on. I always thought he had a really pretty physique, and I felt like with a little bit more size, if he just kept going, a little better conditioning, it could get better and better. And I know you guys got to be at a lot of the Olympias. That might have been my first Olympia I'd ever been to, I think, was 18.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, and I was too far away, like in a balcony seat off to the side to really look at them on stage. So I was looking while they're comparing him and Phil. I was looking at the screens, and I see them going across each guy on the screens, and I'm looking at all the freaking vascularity that Shawn had, and just thinking in my head, because I'm like, well, it's Phil, so he can't beat Phil. But I'm like, but he looks better in this shot, like, you know. And I'm looking at the details, and I'm like, and I feel like he could do this, but he can't beat Phil, you know, because it's Phil. And then they quarter turn, and then I'm like, I think this looks better, and I'm more excited in my head, but I'm like, but he can't beat Phil. And by the end of this, I'm like, and at the end of this, I'm like, I think he's gonna beat Phil. And when he beat Phil, every single person stood up in that room. Everybody lit up, man. It did.
Remember? And they played AC/DC Shook Me All Night Long.
They did. I got a video of that somewhere, man.
Yeah. And I watched, I was sitting up high close to the stage, and we could see Jay and we could see Aceto. And I watched Jay get out of his chair and walk up a few rows and walk over and lean over and shake Chris's hand. And then they kind of hugged over the seats. And I was like, and then there was a video of that went around that was from my area, because it was filmed by someone I was like sitting right with.
Yeah.
And then Shawn won. I remember exactly what you're talking about, Scott. Like I thought, oh, Phil's got him from the back.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're looking at all those spots.
Every other pose, I was like,
I think he's got it.
I think Shawn wins that pose, and then
but they won't give it to him. But it's Phil.
Shawn wins that pose. Side chest. Did Shawn win the side chest?
That can't happen.
And then when they got the ab thigh, remember the ab thigh?
Oh,
and it
Shawn's
was like
nasty.
Oh Jesus, he like really won the ab thigh, and I was like, holy shit, what's gonna? It was like it started to brew. I felt like the crowd was like turning. The crowd was like, holy shit. It was like, supercharged explosion when that happened.
Yeah,
and
that was wild.
It didn't help that at the time Phil was kind of at his most villain of all the years. Like
people wanted to see him lose at that point.
It was which is like an unfortunate thing when you're the champ for years and years on end. That's like there were people that didn't want him to see match Haney and Ronnie's record, right?
Yeah.
And it just when you're on the top, people sometimes they want something new, and that happened to be like a crazy year.
Yeah.
The only difference was though, like when Jay was chasing Ronnie, no one wanted to see Ronnie lose. They just wanted to see Jay win.
Yeah.
and there's a difference. You know what I'm saying? Like in Phil's era, and Ron and I have talked about this many times, it got so villain that as someone who was there for all of it, it wasn't until it ended I looked back and went, Phil is way better than I ever gave him credit for. Even when he was dusting everybody, you just kind of dismissed it because you and the thing is then I got to know him better, and I'm like, he has always been solid to me, awesome in every way, and I'm like, wow, it just shows what can happen to your vision when things are in your head. Because as soon as I look back at him, I'm like, so Phil Heath is the second best bodybuilder ever, in my opinion.
Yeah, Phil Heath was he was fighting an uphill battle against also that Generation Iron movie created a character.
Oh yeah,
he never escaped from. Yeah, it wasn't even real, right? But they painted a picture that he never escaped from. He never got out from underneath that villain sort of picture that movie painted to him, and now I look back on Phil's reign and I was like, oh, this guy was a mentally dominant, like absolute everyone. Machine. Like you got to give him the credit. He's the guy that didn't get the love that he was earning at the time. And I thought he deserved all of his wins. I never thought Kai beat him at all. It was never close to me.
No.
So, and then of course,
19, Brandon Curry
gets one.
Now I thought Brandon was great because the first year he got in the top 10, I can't remember what place it was, but I just was a huge fan of him. And it was the same thing as always, he came out from the Orleans, where they all come out after the show, and he just kind of walked out. Like it wasn't hard for him to escape. And I just walked over and I'm like, you blew my mind, because he made like a huge jump in that year. Yeah. And I was like, I just told him, like, I can't wait to see what's next. And you could see it was like, coincidentally, I didn't know who I was, I don't think, at the time. I was probably one of the few people who even spoke to him. And you could tell he appreciated it. And then what happened between then and 19 was just obscene, because he became a guy who could win any show, anytime, including the Olympia.
Yeah, he got eighth. He got eighth in 2017, which is incredible.
It blew my mind, because it was a huge jump, though. Eighth that's the one thing I think fans lose, and they're like, oh, this guy won't even make the top 5. I'm like, do you know what that means?
Right.
You have any idea what that means?
Best in the world.
I remember my first FIBO was in 2012. And I remember Ben Pekulski messaged me, and he said, hey, do you want to train together at 6 a.m. before the expo? And I was like, sure. So I went to McFit, because we didn't know the gym. McFit was the easy one. It's right by the hotels. Yeah. So I went to McFit, and I was sitting on the couch, and it's like 6 a.m., and I'm waiting for Ben to show up. And Brandon Curry's sitting there on the couch, and he's like waiting for somebody to come and train with him too. And Brandon was a guy who hadn't won anything yet. He just turned pro like a few years before that, and I think he did the Olympia, I think, but he was like 8th or something like that. And he was sitting on the couch, and he had never been in really great shape.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Every placing and stuff that he'd won, like his pro card and everything, would just because his shape and structure, he's just such crazy. A beautiful physique, right?
Yeah.
And he was like, "Yeah, man, it's just I gotta get my conditioning. I gotta get to the next level. But I'm a dad. I got kids, and like being on the road's tough for me. And I really hope I figure it out." Yeah, and I'll never forget that. Like, he was so humble, and like he was just trying to be better. Like, he was just saying, he's like, "Yeah, man, I just want to figure it out, man. I want to do what I got to do to just." He
owned it. He owned it.
Oh,
yeah. It wasn't like, he didn't use we. We're
my coach. He's like, I got to get better. Like, I got to get better. Like, he's like, I'm working on everything. And I remember thinking like, oh, that guy was really cool. Like, he was very humble. It was like I was talking to like a national level competitor who was trying to win a show.
He kept being like that too, man. Like, he was always been that.
So now,
yeah. We did a episode of Bodybuilding Nerds Radio, and I mentioned him. We were talking about. We kind of like were thinking back to him, and I remembered he went up against, I think it was Liberatory, was back when he turned pro, and we were reminiscing about that. And then we did this, we were talking about Frank Zane on that episode. And Frank said that if he measured his wrist, it was like 5.5 inches or 6 inches around. And that was a sign of a good bodybuilder, was how small your joints were. And the next day, we see on Instagram, Brandon Curry. He said, "Hey guys, Bodybuilding Nerds put out a challenge." Like, we don't know Brandon, He's like, "I've listened to this podcast, Bodybuilding Nerds Radio." He's like, "I'm going to put this out there to all you pros. Here's my measurement." His wrist measured like 5.5 inches. It's tiny, we were like, holy shit, 18. Right? And I reached out to him and got him on the podcast. He was so friendly, and then he won the Arnold, like shortly after that. Got him on the show, then he blew up the Arnold. That was my personal favorite look. Now, getting him back on the shows, he said he liked the Olympia better. He was fuller at the Olympia. He was like bigger, rounder, fuller, and that's the look he likes. I liked the nasty, hard Brandon that we saw at the Arnold just a few months before that. But so to me, that was really special because he even took time. He was like over there in Kuwait or, Oxygen Gym. And he was like, "Yeah, man, I'll record with you a week before the Olympia in 2019.
Remember when he came on our show, how cool he was? Sitting in his living room, and his kids are like running around and stuff, and he's just doing a show with us. He was awesome, man.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys.
It blows me away to see that humility from guys that are so high up,
Yeah.
I just want to make sure all the fans catch this, because the way I just heard this happen was his career was going good, but kind of struggling along. Then he met Scott. Then he won an Arnold.
That's all it took. I put a word in for him.
Talked about him. And
I put a word in for him.
Bodybuilding Nerds.
Yeah, they were listening.
We got to keep an eye peeled for this guy.
We gave him a lot more visibility.
Really elevate.
He needed that. Okay. I'll make sure to tell Brandon that. I just thought of something on the show.
If you're listening, Hadi, you got time. We still have time. You got a couple days.
So time to come on and measure your wrist online.
Don't do it, Hadi. I got 100 on this.
Speaking of which,
then of course, what happens?
Wait a second.
Well,
we don't.
No, you got the order wrong. You go to the very bottom because I sent it late.
I was like, hold on a second. This is Hadi.
You almost skipped to Hadi. No. Yes.
No. We got.
Then you got
Ramy.
Then you got the big boy coming in here.
Here he is. Got him. There we go.
2021 champ, both years.
Whew.
I had to do the side chest because that's just stupid. I actually hunted that one down. Didn't know what year the picture was from. I didn't care.
How big around do you guys guess that quad, that whole leg measurement is? Would you guess?
On stage, 33 inches on stage, I bet.
33 inches.
Maybe. Yeah, 33, 34. He's the biggest guy to ever win the Olympia, without a question. Yep. I mean, close to 300 pounds at that win. He was 290 something, I think Chad said.
He was sliced there too.
Yeah, really outrageous physique. Completely out of the ballpark size and mass on that frame. And I remember having Ramy at West Coast Iron for a whole week. He came up here to guest pose at the Popeyes and would have been like 20. I don't know what year it was. 2021 maybe. I can't remember.
Right.
I can't remember what year he was up here, but he was up here guest posing and And yeah, craziness. He was so big in the gym. Like, he stayed covered up the whole time, but he's just so huge. I remember he came in, he arrived on the plane from Kuwait, and he came straight to the gym. I remember they called, and my manager, Matt, like, messaged. He's like, we're bringing Ramy straight to the gym. He wants to train and then go to the hotel. Like, he wants to get, like, you know, get the workout, get the fluid, get moving, get off the plane straight to the gym. So he didn't even go to the hotel. And came in, and they did a short leg workout. He went over to the Arsenal hack, and he was 8 plating it. Like, and I remember at the time I hadn't seen anyone put 8 plates on the Arsenal yet at our gym. I was like, oh, damn. And this might have been 2019. He might have not won the Olympia yet. And he was just like so humongous. He was 300 something, 320, 330, something like that.
Yeah.
And just completely crushed a short leg workout, did some standing leg curls. And then I said, how big are his meals? And I remember Matt said he doesn't eat much. His meals are like 8 ounces of chicken and a cup of rice and some vegetables. And he has 6 of those a day. And that's all he eats.
I heard that.
He doesn't eat a lot.
So I just quit the sport again.
Yeah. I wanted to give a perspective to anybody, and I only have a regular tape measure here, but I wanted to measure, and so I can't get like a good circle, but this is 33 inches. Like, you realize like how freaking big that is around?
Right. Like
you know what I'm saying? That's
put it over your head with the headphones on, yeah.
Yeah, with the headphones on.
With the headphones.
33 inches each leg. That's one. That's one. The size of this guy is insane. He's such a he was such a an imposing figure size wise, you know. But also, I've heard he's always been so nice. He's always been like very pleasant when you're around him, you know.
Most gracious visitor I think we ever had. I remember him doing side laterals with 55-pound dumbbells. Yeah. Which, like, you know, I did 55s back in the day when I was real strong, but he was doing them like they were like 30s.
Yeah.
Like just reps, like sets of 15, just like standing there without his body moving at all, just pumping out sets of laterals with the 55s. And I was like, those just look so small to him, and they're just nothing. Like, just nothing.
And necklace charm.
And I remember he was all covered up in like a black hoodie all the time. Mm-hmm. And so some of our members would get like halfway through their workout, and then all of a sudden they'd go, is that Big Ramy? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, oh my God, I didn't even see him. Because like there's a lot of equipment in there, you know, and he's wearing all black and he's staying covered and everything. It was just funny how people reacted to seeing him in the gym. You know? Yeah. And then they couldn't stop staring. So
I didn't know him, but I got to go backstage. I think it was 2020 or 2019 at the Arnold, 2020 at the Arnold. And I was backstage all day long. And Victoria was out. She had like a seminar thing that she was doing. And then Mike Davies let me bring her backstage for the night show. And so we walked back past like the first part, and we walked behind the stage, and the guys were over there getting ready to pump up before they got on stage. We came around the corner, and the first person standing there was Big Ramy. Everybody's just pumping up. And because like he saw me walk in, he looked up to see who it was, and he just gave me a smile and a fist bump. And I didn't know him or anything, you know? Right. And Victoria looked at me and she was like, was that Big Ramy that just gave you a fist bump? Now, keep in mind, we hadn't been dating for very long yet. And I got
That's how you got married.
I got her backstage at the Olympia. And the next thing she sees Big Ramy fist bumping me, you know, I'm like, of course, yeah, that's my old friend. Ramy. You know, my old friend Ramy. We've been hanging out together all day.
We used to fish together when he was a kid.
I taught him how to make his lures better. Reel. Yeah.
I just sent you a quick video. You got to play the quick video I just sent. Okay, it's fun. Okay. It's short.
Is it on text? Oh, got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yes,
here it is.
Yeah. So this when he guest posed.
Oh, I'm gonna turn this down.
So he was 330. I remember he said he was 330, and this is October of 2019.
Okay.
So this is me. I was emceeing the show, right? And so he comes out at 330, and I remember he was in good shape at 330. Like, he wasn't fat, man. Like, he was like full abs, like, you know.
Yeah.
Just like he was humongous. It was a great show. So. Yeah.
Yes.
Big Ramy.
So,
then,
lining out our Olympias here, we got, of course, someone that I'm still a huge fan of, Hadi Choopan, rolling in on the 2022 champ. That show was phenomenal. Ron and I were at that one together when he won that, and I remember it was great because Shawn Race, I said that he would win, and Shawn Race said they will never give it to him.
A lot of people said that,
and I was like, yeah. They can't not give it to him.
Like, a lot of people did not think they would. They said, a lot of people were like, I hate to say it, but it's too bad of a business move. They can't give it to him.
Yeah,
he doesn't speak English. He doesn't leave the country. He doesn't leave Iran. It's just a bad business move to give it to him. They can't. They're going to have to not do it. And
guess what?
That didn't matter. Didn't matter.
And tell me who has more crazy fans than Iran? Are you crazy?
Yeah,
the bad business move to not give it to him.
Yeah,
Hani's like the Manchester United Football Club, but for Iran.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That's what Hadi does.
Hey, Ron, has one of your clients ever told you that he met Hadi in Iran?
No, I don't remember. Why?
He messaged me over the weekend. Yeah, a guy who's working with you. And I don't want to tell his whole story because I messaged him. He's like, I'm a pretty private guy. But basically, he went there with his wife and he meets him.
Yes,
and they end up
okay.
spending the entire day together. He ends up taking him to his gym, giving him clothes, giving your training partner clothes out of his locker to wear. And so he could train in like gym clothes. They work out together. They go out and eat food together. He sends me pictures of like his family, Hadi's family with your client and his wife, and they just like had this great day. And then the whole rest of the trip, Hadi was checking in with him and making sure that everything was all right. That he was having a good trip and everything.
I've heard that Hadi. I've worked with several Iranian guys in the last few years, and they've all said that Hadi is famously just outrageously kind.
Yeah,
and just like a level that North American people just don't give a shit about others.
Yeah, he said that like people were coming up all through the dinner and asking him for pictures and autographs, and he talked to everyone. Although he did say like that his friends had told him like, man, he doesn't really take to everybody like this, but he's not going to greet everybody who visits Iran like that. You know what I mean? But this guy, he hit it off with him really well, and it was a really cool story to hear that.
That was awesome.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, and then that brings us up to
current champ, Derek Lunsford. The only guy to win the 212 and the Open Olympia. And, I mean, come on. Now, I've got to the point now where I see Derek, and the first thing I wonder is, will this be the year that he has truly the greatest rear double bicep of all time? It's already in the conversation, but I mean it's gotten better from what I'm seeing from pictures. So yeah, Derek blew my mind. So I was there when he missed his pro card, the USA's 1 year. He got beaten. Then the following year he won, and they went straight to Tampa and won. And he's been essentially winning ever since.
Yeah.
Absolutely ridiculous. And a guy who has put on size in a way that did not negatively affect his physique one iota. Like his waist, if it's come up proportionately with everything else, so it doesn't matter. I mean, just absolutely ridiculous. Another guy that, no one can have anything negative to say about. So
yeah.
I feel like Lunsford is I mean, as great as some of the challengers are, I mean, we're looking at an insane lineup.
Yes.
As great as some of the challengers are, and as unbelievably close as Hadi was last year to him in like so many ways, even having like a couple shots from the front that were better and all that. I just, my gut tells me Lunsford is going to hold on to the title, and that his age gives him an advantage as far as making improvements goes. It's harder for the older guys to make improvements. Derek, just Father Time is just not bothering him right now. He's not being checked on by time right now. He's just got that to his advantage, and I think that's something that's going to play in his favor.
So sounds like you guys are both making your Olympia prediction right now. Then
I kind of that's just what my gut says. Yeah.
I'm going to be the odd man out. I'm going to make it a little bit more exciting. Then I'm going to say Hadi takes it. I'm going to say that he was so angry when he stormed off, and he wasn't. Here's my thought: he wasn't mad at the judging. He was disappointed in himself, and he's been fucking angry ever since. And he's got something to prove. They were so close before. That said, at the end of the day, remember, guys, I'm a nice guy. I'm Scott, right? So Scott, the producer, I'm a nice guy. It's all splitting hairs. These guys are all the freaking best in the world.
I also, I have to give credit to Hani Rambod for how Hani is really, really fantastic at mentally managing these guys. I've heard some stories about how he goes deep on what he has to say to them to get the most out of them at that level. It just changes. At that level, it's not really as much about how many grams of rice. It's more about, keeping things, keeping that train where it needs to be. And, Hani's got strict rules. I think he's like telling guys have to turn their phones off at certain, oh wow, there's that sort of stuff going on with some of these guys. And, I think with him managing the top two, Hadi and Derek, I think you can expect them both to be at their very best, and that makes for an unbelievable battle.
It will. It's going to be awesome.
Real quick too is, don't you find it interesting that for the last couple of years you got someone like Nick Walker, who we haven't even touched on, won't be doing in the show, but where people are like, I think his physique is kind of maxed out.
Come on.
Because a lot of people have said that for years. They're like, where is he going to put more? He's already it's not a diss on him. It's just he's so damn good that becomes the argument. And I don't bring that up about Nick. I bring that up because you would think that would be times 10 for Derek, but it's not. Know that Derek is bringing something more ridiculous this year. We've seen it. It's not even a question. And it's just one of those things where you start to realize, if he can continue on the trajectory he is, the focus, the health, all those things, it doesn't appear to be there's nothing where you're looking at his physique as good as it is that you're thinking, well, that can't get any better. For whatever reason, we all buy into the fact that Derek can and will continue to get better, which I think is phenomenal because he is the best. And there are people, in his same age bracket and things like that, and coming up at the same rate, where we're kind of saying where are they going to go? And you look at him and it's more like where can't he go? I think it's going to be pretty ridiculous to see. So that's exciting to me to realize that, because as a fan, being at the Olympia in 2003 when Ronnie came out, being at the Olympia in 2009 when Jay walks out and you get chills. I mean, selfishly, you just want that back. I want someone to do that again because it's fun.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, it'd be a crazy show. We got to touch on some of the other pictures too. Let's do a quick skim of some of the other stuff. Dusty did a bunch.
I went to work this morning.
Let's throw up that classic. Let's throw up that classic photo of the first classic winner, Danny Hester, versus Bumstead, just to show what
Danny Hester in 2016 and Bumstead in 2023.
Oh yeah. Hold on, I'm scrolling.
Very last photo.
Just for those of you guys who forget what has happened in the classic division. Obviously, they moved the weight limits up for everybody. They slightly adjusted.
They changed the trunks.
They changed the trunks, But to go from 2016, the first year they had it right.
Yeah. And Danny won that year. For anyone who doesn't realize, that was your Olympia champ.
Yeah. Danny Hester was the first classic Olympia champ, and then you've got of course the king Chris Bumstead there. And that division as 2016, it's hard to imagine that it's only, what's that? It'd be 9 years.
Yeah, we're coming up on exactly.
Or 8 years. What is that even? Yeah, so 9 years. Yeah, something like that. You got Danny, and then you got Breon twice, and now you're gonna have 6 Bumsteads if that's how it goes down, right? Yeah. So so it's, because it's funny, and Classic, to me, I feel like we've been dealing with Classic for forever, but it's really not even a decade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's evolved a lot real fast.
Yeah, the evolution has been crazy. So yeah, really, really excited for that too. And we're going to be able to watch that one from the booth at the expo.
Nice.
Because our booth is like so close to the stage. So it's going to be cool.
Cool.
So I wanted to do one more at least here, Scott. I want you to throw up the first ever Miss Olympia. This is 1980.
Rachel McClish.
Yes. So that was where Miss Olympia started.
Oh God, that's too much muscle. There were people saying that at the time, right?
Oh, absolutely. That was disgusting.
Looks like a man.
Yeah.
Wonder what that guy's doing after this,
So what is that now? Is that kind of a level 1 figure amount of muscle? Is that a bikini? It's not really a bikini physique.
I think if she wasn't posing,
my
she could be
pool. Bikini. A girl who has a gym in her garage.
Yeah, and she's maybe going to do a figure show or something.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and it's we say that not dissing on this. I think that's a phenomenal physique. It's just how much the game has changed.
Yeah,
I love the Olympia. And
that's how Emily's legs look like all year.
Yeah, that's just a beautiful physique back then. One thing I wonder is back then, I wish I could have you've thought about more is what everyone else looked like. It seems like it would be harder to determine a winner when they look like that.
Yeah, they're all so similar.
You know what I mean? Yeah, because it's genetic shape and a little bit of training and whatnot. But I wanted to throw that, and then we obviously there was a ton along the way.
Linda.
But
throw Linda.
Go to Linda.
Throw Linda. I mean, Linda was, I think,
that
8-time champ.
Yes,
that was kind of like, to me, like my favorite era of women's bodybuilding, as far as the amount of muscle they were carrying and stuff, like for the era. Generally the lineup kind of looked like that, and it was like really great, crazy X frames.
And when I think of Linda Murray, if I were to think like what's one adjective to describe her besides like crazy jacked, in shape, all that, I would say class. She was all class, and she still is today.
Also, barely she's I think she's like 54 now or something, and you see Linda and you cannot believe how you can't believe she's 50. She can't believe she's in her 50s. She looks unbelievable, just crazy. Yeah.
So when I did the Chicago Pro run, she was there taking photos, and it was for the I think Mannion was taking pictures, and so I was taking a picture with her. I had my arm around her back, and then he goes to take the picture. Goes, I got to change something, and he goes to change it, and I looked at her. I go, I can hang out with you all day like this, and she just laughed. I'm like, yes, and she's got 20 plus years on me and looks 20 years younger than me. She's awesome. And I think what's great, and I hate to skip over everything between Linda and now, but we have a new Linda of class and just balance and beautiful physique, and of course Mutant Zone, Andrea Shaw. I'm as excited for her step on stage this year as anyone now, after having lost at the Wings of Strength. I'm just ecstatic to see what changes are made with the new coaching.
Me too,
with more food and the magic that's going to take place. I think it's going to be really exciting. And, she's someone that we obviously know really, really well. But to have that much class and just beauty across the board in that sport, I think it needs it. I think it's going to bring the sport to another level. So I'm hoping to see her bring something really special and remind people why Iris Kyle thinks that she's the person who can beat her 10-time champ record.
Yeah. There was you got Iris, obviously. Throw a quick picture of Iris up there.
I threw one there with like 10 different views of it because she's won it 10 times.
Yeah, she won it 10 times. So, I mean, Iris was like the Ronnie Coleman of women's bodybuilding for a decade. And, kind of seen as the all-time greatest, most dominant champ.
Yeah.
And then you can't forget, between Linda and Iris, we had Kim Shevesky.
Chad's
and
wife, yep.
I sent you that photo, Scott.
Mm-hmm.
You got Chad Nichols' wife, Kim, who was essentially the reason why women's bodybuilding went in like a crazy conditioning direction there in the mid 90s. And also how Kim looked and how dominant she was as Miss Olympia is the reason why people started asking Chad for help. That was the beginning of Chad Nichols as like the Mr. Olympia coach, right? So it was Nasser who went to Chad first, I believe, and was like, will you help me? And Chad was like, well, yeah, sure. Okay. And then like, it just snowballed from there. And then, you got, Flex Wheeler and Chris Cormier and everyone just started going to Chad. And then Chad kind of like owned the mid 90s there with like all the top guys. And then, of course, that famous story of Flex talking Ronnie into hiring him. And
which they didn't do that.
You get Ronnie Coleman, so like it's funny how it all ties together, Kim kind of ties in with that whole world of bringing that Dorian condition to women's bodybuilding. So yeah, that was a lot of fun, guys. Olympia roundup. I enjoyed that. Yes. I hope that you guys listening learned something from that. I thought we were going to do that in 20 minutes. That's how dumb I am.
Yeah.
So we'll do it. 20 minutes.
To get these pictures. It better not.
Dusty did too. Yeah, there's more pictures we didn't even get to,
Yeah, like he had all the 212 guys and everything. He had all the 212 guys broken down and everything like that. So, but we'll definitely touch on everything as we're going. But, what else do we have, Scott? We had a good question. Didn't you have a good question you wanted to hit?
I wanted to ask you guys, I want to say one more thing too, by the way. With Andrea Shaw, she is the only person that I actually get nervous to watch. I personally, right. I don't even want to watch. I just want to know. I told that to Luke this year. I was like, I don't even want to see it. I just want to know when it's over. I want to know that she did it. I'm personally invested in that one. And I'm really pulling for her. So I wanted to say that, but I did have a question for you guys. I know we're all pulling for her, by the way.
Absolutely.
I did have a question for you guys. Who is your dark horse for the Open Olympia? And now that Nick Walker is out, man, no, just dark horse. Who's going to surprise us in some way? Maybe it's even, gosh, he made it up into the top 5 and we didn't expect that. Some type of a surprise in the show.
Well, obviously big jolt with Nick. Not being in the show, that really creates a kind of a gaping hole into that top 5. I just wanted to say gaping hole.
Yeah, you did. That's so obvious.
But
it's totally monetizable.
We're
good.
Day. Just waiting all day.
You can monetize that.
Yeah.
We're good.
Gaping holes can be monetized, Scott. So
not if you keep saying
it. Dark turn. It's a dark turn. Yeah. Okay. So I think I still think that we are yet to see the all-time best of Hunter.
Yeah.
And I think that I'm going to put my money on Hunter to bring his all-time best to this show. And I think that he knows that this is an opportunity for him to step into the next level of the Olympia. And I like Hunter so much as a guy and as a bodybuilder. And I really would love to see Hunter get that top 5 call out, that next level, and move into that circle of, the fire of hell. And
move back into, by the
definitely, way. Back into, because he was 4th one year, wasn't he? Yeah. He pulled a 4th one year, and then he was 6th last time. Was that where he landed? Where did he land?
Terribly.
So I think, and the year he got 4th, he like pulled ahead in finals, didn't he? Because in prejudging he wasn't in 4th, and then he like moved up.
That's right.
But I would he wasn't in like he actually pulled like a finals like shift, which was like crazy. But I would like to see him go out there and I believe Hunter has what it takes to really get into that next level. First call out, like right off the bat, and just bring it home. So he's not much of a dark horse because it's Hunter. You expect him to be one of the greatest, right? But that's
there's people that are discounting him, like Justin said on the show the other week. He was like, Justin said he thought he was the most underrated guy there is right now.
Yeah.
Because there are people, and when I've talked about him on the shows, people are, there are some people. There's going to be people that crap on everybody, right? But
I'm a big Hunter fan. So
I think there are people who will be shocked, surprised. Yeah. They, seeing if he move up. I'd love to freaking see it, and I think you could be right.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go darker dark horse because I named Hunter like 6 weeks ago, so that's boring. Yeah.
Thanks, Dusty.
Yeah. So the dark horse I'm throwing in that I don't think is a surprise to either of you is Martin Fitzwater.
Okay.
I think Martin is gonna shock people. He's definitely gonna be in the top 10. I would be stunned if he's not, but I think it's gonna be, and this sounds silly who those don't know bodybuilding, but he's gonna be, top 7 or 8, which is enormous. There's 18 in this lineup, and some huge names, and it wouldn't shock me if he's in the lower end of that. I just think he's a guy who's really finding his rhythm. He's phenomenal, and I think and I don't know him, but I'm just from watching how he's handling things. I think he's getting all areas of life to cooperate with bodybuilding now, and that is something that people do not understand. Is when everything is lined up and smooth, bodybuilding goes better. His physique shows it, his attitude shows it, and I think we're going to see something pretty special out of him. So I hope he proves me right for himself, not for me, because I still don't think a lot of people realize how good he is.
Yeah.
I talked to him about getting him on the show, and I dropped the ball, and it just never happened. So if he's watching this, regardless of what happens, I want to get him on at some point after the show, guys. I'm a big fan. And if you looked at him versus Nick, I mean, if we're talking Nick's a top 5 guy, he pushed Nick. You know what I'm saying?
Guy. Exactly.
So,
Yep. Absolutely.
Agreed.
And he looked amazing next to Andrew Jacked at the Dallas Pro, and that was like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Like
he's gotten way better.
Way better. So you're right. Great pick. What about you, Scott?
I am going to call Brandon because I don't think anybody's expecting anything from him. People have such a short attention span with bodybuilding. We're talking former Olympia. We're talking a guy who's been here and done that for a long time.
He's only 41.
He's not he's not over in Kuwait from what I understand this year. I haven't followed most of the guy's preps. So outside of seeing a couple random videos, I haven't seen where he's at. But if he does well, I think that will surprise people because I don't think that people are really talking about like what's Brandon going to do. They just like you've been around. People have expectations that like, you're going to be in there somewhere,
Right.
And I think there's this attitude of like the new school's coming. They're going to push out the old guys. I want to see him show people what's up. And I have a who we got here?
Donna just popped in to say hello.
Hi, Don. I have a feeling he's not going to continue doing this forever, right? So his retirement's probably coming sooner than it is later. Who knows when that's going to be? But I would love to see him crack up into that top 5.
Right.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
Okay. Great pick. I got to take care of something for a minute. I'll be right back.
Dusty. See ya. Ron had a rant for us.
Yes. Yeah. Well, if you need Donna to step in, she's got some rants lately as well.
Hey, let's talk about Nick.
Yes, let's cover Nick.
Yeah, we can because we probably weren't going to get a chance to do that otherwise. I think that I was shocked, first of all, and I've noticed, man, there's a lot of people behind him still, but there's a lot of people who are saying like he didn't have anywhere left to go. He's not going to get any better. In fact, I saw somebody say like he needs to retire. The dude just turned 30. Jay Cutler didn't even reach his prime until 2006, right? He was 33, right. So I think Nick's got some time. What do you say?
It's really simple. Like, why don't we look at Brett Wilkin? The exact same thing happened to Brett last year. He had to, his body stopped cooperating for whatever reason. They took a step back. They let his body rest. He came back, and he brought his best ever, and in my opinion, just dusted his show and got an easy win, qualification for next year, correct?
Yeah.
And I mean, listen, people love to watch you fall, and I think that's the danger of where Nick's at, and fortunately, I know that he has the mental whereabouts to not be worried about that.
Yeah.
But it's a sad story. It's like the same people who can't wait to watch you get to the top are the first ones to love to watch you fall, and they knew it was all going to go wrong. And like I said to you yesterday, like, oh, could you imagine being so bad that you're Nick Walker, and if he comes in off, he's probably getting 5th or 6th.
Right.
I don't think people realize this. He's making a decision for longevity and to make sure he's the best. And this is about him bringing the look that he wants to the stage and that he believes is enough for his goal, because I know some people can't understand this, but he's not going to the Olympia to do anything but win.
Yeah.
That's his goal. Same as everyone else in the top mix. If you're coming into that show and you're in that top 5, 6 range and you're not there to win, then just stay home, because you're not going to win. You know, I don't think any of them are coming in going, oh, I hope I do okay.
Just hearing it for the experience, see what it's like.
It's not disrespectful for Hunter Labrada to be coming to the Olympia to win. He should be. And so should Nick, and he knows he couldn't. So I love their move. I think it's smart, and I mean, it's healthy. More guys should be doing these things. And I, it's like the Jay thing. I hope that Nick does everything I just said so he can look back and go, I remember when how many of you were still here. Because Jay did that after he won in 2009. Because he's like, no one had me. And then somebody goes, well, I did. He goes, no one had me winning. And he loved being able to say that because it was true. So I know that Nick will take the time. He's one of the, if not the most devoted to bodybuilders on the planet. You can ask Jay Cutler. He will be the first to tell you Nick Walker is a bodybuilder. The end. Yeah, so absolutely. I look forward to seeing his best, and it'll be coming next year. And, he's obviously awesome. His family's great supporters of the show. So we want to see Nick come back at his best next season.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I missed most of that, but I know exactly what you were saying, Dusty, and I'm completely on board with sending my best to Nick. Tough time for him, obviously, and I hope that everything gets everything back to where he needs it, and I'd love to see him improve and crush it. So,
absolutely,
yeah.
So, Ron, we had a rant to discuss.
Well, I don't know if it's such a rant, but I had some observations and some advice for people.
It'll become a rant.
It'll become a rant, but it's not a negative rant. I'm not upset. No. It's a positive rant. It's just a reminder to everybody. I wanted to touch on those of you that have just competed or are going to compete soon, or going to do a show early next year or whatever. I've seen 3 shows in the last 2 weekends, and I just got back from nationals on the weekend here in Toronto, and we had our double show the weekend before that. So I've just been through a lot with like 11 different clients, and just seen a whole bunch of different stuff, and then other, like, obviously the people that aren't my clients, just watching their shows too, friends and stuff, people from the gym. And I just had some observations. I had a lot of bodybuilding the last 2 weekends, and it was about the morning show and the night show. And I watched, I think an important thing that I try to tell people is, sometimes you grind all year, you train to win, and you go to the morning show and you get the call outs and you realize I'm not in first. They put that other guy in the middle. They put me in the 2 spot or whatever. Or you think, man, it's a close call. Or you think, shit. Even I remember shows where I'm like, man, I think I'm 5th.
Right.
This sucks. Like, I remember going to the Canadas once and they put me on the end of the first call out, and I'm like, oh man, I'm going to get 5th or 4th, maybe if I'm lucky. But like, just being like pretty upset because I'm like, shit. Okay. And from what I've seen, I saw 3 classes in the last 2 weekends that got a confirmation round at the night show because they were so close. So they're like lining up the super heavyweights at nationals, and they announce, the judges have told us that we are going to do a confirmation round for this class, which at amateur shows is extremely rare.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they bring the heavyweights, the super heavyweights out, and they judge them again. They run them through another round of call outs. They make sure everybody's where they're supposed to be, and they work them. They do like 5 rounds with the top 5 guys. Yep. And then they do a pose down, and the whole pose down, you see the judges are like on their sheets for like a 3-minute pose down, and the judges have their heads down and they're like looking at each other, and they're like dying. They're like, who are we giving this to? Like, we're about to change somebody's life, because whoever wins this class is probably going to win the overall, and we're about to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I saw it with 2 classes at our show, the level 1 show, the regional show last weekend. There was 2 classes that just basically had a tie in them, or something that they thought, man, we got to have another look at that at night and see if somebody blew it, see if somebody comes back with a, water on them, or see if someone comes back with a distended waist or something. You never know, right? Like, see who can hold this and really decide what we're going to do with this class. And then you also just have the attitude that I used to have, which was, even if they put me 4th or 5th or wherever they put me, I want to come back to the night show and perform so well and look so good that the crowd wonders how the hell I placed 4th. Right. I want people to leave going, why was Ron 4th? Because like, just that kicking and fighting to the very end. Like, never, ever just go, I'm 5th, and just, come back to the night show kind of like, I'm 5th. And yeah, you're 5th, but you don't have to look 5th. And this crowd can leave thinking you got shafted. And you can make some of and you can also make judges on the panel go, damn, I put that guy 5th, and I'm not so sure I made the right call now that I see how good he looks tonight. You know what I mean? And they might not rejudge your class, obviously. You're going to wind up where they put you. But it's nice, and I've seen that before. I've seen judges come up to people and go, I think you maybe should have placed higher. You know what I mean? And I want all of that as a competitor. I want every last bit, every single scrap of, it's like playing football, that game of inches thing. I want every single millimeter I can get out of my appearance on stage. And, if you think you're 4th, or you think you're 5th, or you think you're 3rd, or whatever spot you think you are after the morning show, it's not over. Yeah, your placing might be sealed. Your fate might be sealed for the placing, but it is not over. There is more show. There are more people to blow away. There are people to think, man, that guy should have never placed ahead of you. And I just really want to make sure everyone remembers that. And, I had like a couple clients that did a great job of that. Everyone trains to win. And sometimes you're like, it looks like I'm going to be 2nd. And I'm like, well, go out and make the crowd wonder why the hell you're 2nd. And they went, yeah, you're right. And they go out there and they nail everything, and they clear their head, and they go do the night show, big smile, hit their side chest, smash everything, and do their routine. And the crowd goes, holy shit, your guy looked awesome. He could have won that class. And I'm like, yep, he could have. We'll get him next year. And I just want to remind everybody that the show is not over. Your placing might be sealed, but there's more. You can get more out of it. And you want to leave the show with every single millimeter that you can out of that game. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I wanted to throw in one more thing, though, too, because this is something I've seen that drives me crazy, is you get that first call out. They bring the first 5 out, and then you see someone get moved to the end, and you see them react to it.
Oh, yeah.
You see them slump down. You see their posing get a little sloppy. Like, you're still on stage. You're still being judged. It is not too late to work your way back in as you work your ass off and keep that look of confidence and keep rolling forward. I sent you guys that video the other week. I had a client that did a show, and it was him and one other guy in the super heavyweight class, and they're both in great shape. And he started in the middle, and they moved him to the right, split the other guy in the middle. They worked him around, and right up until the end, then all of a sudden, he just keeps rolling, and they turn to the back. He hits a rear double, and you could tell he hit it like he was winning the overall. And they saw his condition. They slid him back to the middle. Then he hits one more nasty ab shot, and it was over. And had he opted to take the loser mentality when they moved him out, he wouldn't have come back. And he ended up winning that class and winning the overall. And that win took place not just in the 3 years we worked together for the show and the 20 weeks leading into it, but in that time that he was, put outside for 4 poses when he could have went, oh, I just lost. He just fought his way back in, and they're like, oh, never mind. We had the right guy the first time. And you guys need to keep that in mind, because as a judge, if you throw the white flag, I accept it.
Sure.
Cool. 5th.
Absolutely.
Now I don't even need to worry about you anymore. You've told me you're in 5th also. Great. We agree. I'll go look at the top 4 now. That's on you. Yeah. That stuff drives me crazy when I see it at shows, because you should grind it out. Like you said, Ron, I always finished preps all the way to the night show no matter what, because that was what I committed to myself. That was my standard. Like I go to the USA's and tape 5th. I know after prejudging it's done. It's locked. We're good. I'm not going to eat. I'm not changing my water. I'm not doing nothing. I'm finishing what I started. I just worked a year for this. I'm going to stop 7 hours early, 24 hours early. Are you high? Like, just finish what you started, and particularly when you're still on stage, because I've seen people get moved out and moved back in if they stay in. But again, if you move back in, if you fall apart, they go, "Oh, we were right. Good."
Yeah.
I saw
the opposite. I saw the opposite, where a guy was on the outside, wasn't really, this is what one of the judges told me too. He ended up winning his class, but he said, yeah, I saw him when we brought him all out. He was on the end. The light wasn't as good, and he didn't look like he was posing as well. But once we moved him in, then he came to life. So in that situation, he got lucky. It was his first show. He got lucky though, because had they not moved him in, he wouldn't have had that opportunity. And they said, it's like when we moved him in, he came to life, and then he ended up dominating like 6 guys. Otherwise though, hey, that's a luck of the draw. You might be just left on the outside to be forgotten. I'd say that number 1, and number 2, working the show, continue working the peak. Like, man, you never know. If you could come back better for the night show, not only is it going to look good for your pictures when you do your presentation, your posing, but also you learned something more about what you can do. And then the next show, maybe you got something else lined up, a few weeks later or something, you'll be able to better hit that target a little bit sooner. It's a great time to continue pushing, to experiment and find out, well, how much more am I really capable of? Because sometimes it's like, you have no other choice but to keep pushing, because you're in that situation to try to get better, and boom, you find out, hey, I was capable of more. And even if you didn't get anything out of the placings, you know it in your heart, and you know what you're going to do next time.
I vividly remember 2007. There was 33 super heavyweights. And the biggest class I ever went against. And Ben Pekulski was in my class. And it was his first year at Nationals. And we did the first call out. And I just happened to land in the middle. And they kept me there. And they moved Ben in beside me. And we went through several rounds. Like, they worked the shit out of us. Must have done 3 full rounds, maybe even more. And I could see the one judge was pointing at me and Ben. And she was shaking her head, and she was telling the head judge, and she was pointing at me and Ben, and she was like going like this. And so the head judge looked at us, and he goes like this, okay, Ron and Ben switch, and I lost the middle. And he moved Ben to the middle, and he put me in the next spot over. And I remember thinking like I'm in a rear naked choke right now.
Yep. Yep.
And I'm not tapping. And I just remember sitting on my legs and holding my waist so tight perfectly and just robot posing and staring right at her. Yeah. Staring at her like, you bitch. I am not losing this. And I remember just in my head, I was just like in a fight. I remember that. And I remember posing and posing. The crowd's going crazy. It was like crazy crowd. And I remember the other judges looking at the head judge, and the head judge looking at her and shaking his head. And I remember she went like this. And she kind of put her hands up. And he goes, Ron, back in the middle. Wow. And I fist pumped, and I went back in the middle, and we stood there for a second, and we did a couple more poses. And then he said, thank you, gentlemen. See you tonight. And I walked off stage, and I was like, fuck yeah. I don't know if I won that, but I'm watching the judges' faces. I think I got it.
And you did everything you could.
Everything I could.
Yeah, either way.
I was completely drained. Like that was the craziest prejudging ever.
And I bet Ben was too.
Yeah, and I won by 1 point.
Yes. That's wild.
Yeah.
Those are the best.
Guess what? She was the 1 point.
No, but like, you know, the judges didn't all agree, but they were like, they like accepted the head judges. Like, I'm putting them back in the middle. And they were like, okay, fair enough. And they all kind of looked and they shrugged and, you know, so it was a close call, man, but you got to scrap. You got to scrap, you know? So
I think that's my little rant. I think the important thing to add to that real quick, because I know the stories, is also for those of you who are listening and watching that, the story is even better when Ben tells you the next year that he remembered that, and that's why he grinded harder to come in even better. Like, that's the respect among competitors.
Ben told me that he thought he should have won, and he thought, oh, Ron won because he, you know, whatever. They've seen him so many times. And then when he saw the video, he said, "You outposed me."
Dang, that's
and
respectful.
I couldn't control my midsection. I was gassed. I was huffing and puffing through my midsection. I wasn't holding my poses, and you were like a robot. And I worked on my posing all year. And then he turned pro the following year. So anyways, that was like a really cool thing that I know happened. It's like I proved I know that that's what happened because he even told me.
That's what competition's about too. Really. Yeah. You know, when people are like, as a plastic trophy, what do you even care? You drove him to work harder than he would have otherwise. And he proved him, like, he worked to be the absolute best he could simply because of competition. You know, that's what's cool about bodybuilding.
Yep.
Agreed.
Yep. So that's just a little bit for everybody. Show's not over till it's absolutely fucking over.
Not over till I ring the bell.
Yeah. Not over till you ring the bell, Dusty. So is that it, guys? Are we good? Are we happy with that?
We're good. Absolutely.
Okay. So remember, you can get all the Olympia collab gear, all the hoodies and t-shirts and all the crazy stuff they got for the O at olympiagear.com. Yeah, they got all a bunch of stuff. I got a couple of hoodies and shit. So we're excited to go. We're going to be all emblazoned.
You'll see us.
Yes.
You'll see us for sure. Can't miss us. So remember, IamMutant.com. You can also go there, get your ISO search, get your all in it. Everyone should get on your gear. Dusty is Dusty's code now, and Big Ron is my code now. There's no number on it, so just use Big Ron and Dusty. And remember to like, share, subscribe, comment, and
ring the bell.
Absolutely, ring the bell. Okay, and remember, Think Big Bodybuilding Patreon. Keep it producer honed.
Thank you, guys.
And you know, one of these days, Scott's gonna, you know, do another tech upgrade or get a fancy microphone, and you'll know where that money went.
Yeah, and you guys can right now check out the Cuba episode that's out on Patreon, and come and see us. We're going to be recording, and I'm going to try to do some live stuff too. I don't know what day it is, but I'm going to go hang out with Cuba and Meg either on Wednesday or Thursday, and we're going to record from their Airbnb. So I want to try to see if I can do that live, and we're going to do a little preview of how Meg's looking for the show. So I'm excited for that.
Absolutely. So thanks to everybody. Hope you enjoyed this week's Olympia episode. We kind of little history of the Olympia and a bunch of stories from us. So had a great time. And remember, it's just bodybuilding.